Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. When it comes to saving money, there are three financial tools that you have to be aware of in 2026, and that is a high yield savings account, a treasury bill or T-bill, and certificates of deposit or CDs. Each of these accounts can give you benefits that you didn't know that you had. Then that can give you instant access and better rates. Also, it can give you more flexibility and in some cases even hidden tax advantages so that you can keep more of your money and build your wealth faster. Now, one of the things that I personally learned, it's not so much about choosing which one is for you, but also making sure how you can use them all strategically. So that's exactly what we're going to be covering. Now, I want to share with you and be open because I know that it can be very confusing. When I first started working at a bank a long time ago, I heard of CDs, right? I kept hearing about CDs. I was like, what is that? It wasn't until about 15 years later that I learned about high yield savings accounts. And then lately, I've been learning about T bills and how they can help you maximize your interest without having to pay too much tax. So, a lot of people use just one of these tools, and it's about matching the timelines and not really chasing the best rate, in my personal opinion. So, all three can work together strategically. So, with all that being said, let's dive into each one of them and how you can use them together. Now, of course, the first one is high yield savings account, and this is basically your safety net. And the way I personally see it, this is where you put your money that you'll be needing in at least 6 months. Anything for emergencies, anything for bills, any life expense to pop up without warning. Now, there are three things that you need to be aware of when it comes to high yield savings. Number one is, of course, the rate advantage. Top high yield savings accounts nowadays are paying between 3.5 to 4%. And that's a lot higher than what a lot of big banks out there are charging or paying you, between less than 1%. Now, to put things in perspective, of course, if you have $10,000 in a big bank account that earns $1 per year, the same amount in a top high yield savings account could be earning you $350 to $400 annually, of course, assuming the interest rate remains the same and no further contributions. And then one of the big advantages also of these high yield savings accounts is that it is very instant liquidity. That means you can access your cash very easily. If you need to use an ATM, you could if your bank offers that, or you can just make a transfer, which typically takes about 1 to 3 business days. This is the foundation. Everyone needs this bucket fully funded before anything else. Now, the other option is T bills or treasury bills, and this is where you keep your rolling cash. Now, if you've never heard of this financial tool, these are essentially loans to the government that mature between 4 and 54 weeks. And these combine safety with predictable liquidity. And liquidity, again, it means access and how quickly you can get your money. Now, these T bills offer competitive rates. Around 3 month T bills yield around like 3.5% nowadays, similar to high yield savings accounts. But the beautiful thing about T bills, and I was actually talking about one of my friends about this, is the state tax efficiencies and exceptions. So if you're somebody that lives in a high tax state, like maybe California or maybe New York, then this could be a great option. And one thing that you can do with this financial tool is that you can ladder them to mature every 1 to 3 months. And that way you can be creating a scheduled cash flow without touching your emergency fund. So the way I see it is you would have your emergency fund here. That's the foundation in the high yield savings account. And then you could have, of course, T bills that mature every couple of months. And then you can just keep rolling them over. That way you can maximize your interest and minimize tax that you have to pay legally, of course. Now, they're very easy to purchase if you do it through Fidelity, Schwab, or Vanguard. You can just use them through a broker. I've heard feedback from customers saying to not use Treasury Direct because it's very clunky. So that can set you back, and it'll still get it done, but a broker is just much more streamlined. At the end of the day, the biggest advantage of Treasury bills is that, of course, it can give you higher returns with tax efficiency depending on where you live. Now, the third option we're going to cover today is CDs. And these are financial tools that can guarantee a fixed rate for months. Now, while we were looking at T bills here, they are typically between 4 to 52 weeks. CDs, on the other hand, they're actually measured by months, and they protect you if rates drop while your money sits untouched. So, for example, you could be locking an interest rate for a CD at 3.5% nowadays, perhaps for the next year or year and a half. And this could be very advantageous because nowadays the Federal Reserve is reducing interest rate. Most likely it will be decreasing again in the next couple of months. And so this right here will help you lock in an interest rate, and that can give you, of course, more return on your money, and they're also FDIC insured typically. Now, the trade-off, of course, is that most CDs that give you a worthy interest rate do have withdrawal penalties. So they can charge you anywhere from 3 to 6 months of the interest if you break, essentially, quote unquote, the agreement and you withdraw your money before the CD matures. So these are perfect tools for known future expenses. So maybe you are saving for a down payment, for maybe tuition, business investments. So these are things that you've already budgeted for and are preparing, so that way you can maximize the interest that you have on a certain amount of money. Now, one thing to keep in mind here, just like treasury bills, you put in your deposit once and then that's it, right? You can't put money in, you take money out. You cannot add to that amount or take money out. And so just keep that in mind. And CDs, they work best when you're confident about your timeline and you want great protection. So here's one strategy that you can implement where you use all of these tools congruently. Now, when it comes to any short-term expenses of 0 to 6 months, it could be 0 to 12 months. This is going to depend on to you. This is just an example. This is where you can be using a high yield savings account for liquidity, high access to your cash, of course, and maximizing your interest, right? So this is where you can put your emergency fund, any type of upcoming big expenses like maybe insurance, maybe taxes, or maybe book travel, any vacations that you want to take. Then the next tool that you can move on to is T-bills, and this is where you can put money that you will need not tomorrow, not in 6 months, but maybe in 6 to 12 months. So once you cover your basics with a high yield savings account and T-bills for midterm savings, then you can implement CDs for anything that will be coming up in 1 year plus. So that way you can lock in today's rates regardless of what happens next. So this strategy right here is going to help each of your dollars earn interest while being tax efficient, and of course making sure that you are okay in the short term, midterm, and medium to long term. Now, here's a big picture comparison and all the details that I'm sure that you would love to know when it comes to these three options. I focused here on historical returns from 2023 to 2025. Just keep it in short term here. Also, the risk level, the insurance on how they are insured, just to give you more peace of mind, and also how accessible and liquid they are, and what the best use for each one of these options is. So I'm not going to go over this table here. You can take a screenshot and just analyze it, but I wanted to give you here the bottom line. So here's an example on how you can use this strategy. So for example, let's say that you got $30,000 to save. So one strategy is depending on how much your monthly expenses are, but let's just say that you can put $15,000 in a high yield savings account. That's going to be immediately accessible. Then you could put $10,000 in a T-bill ladder where you have $5,000 for a 3 months T-bill, or that's what, 12 weeks or 13 weeks. And then you can have another one for like 26 weeks or 30 weeks and whatnot. And that's going to give you a way for you to keep maximizing and rolling over the interest that you earn. And then you can put $5,000 in a 12-month CD for a goal that is due late in 2026 or 2027. So it's the same $30,000 now, earning potentially $900 to $1,200 instead of just $3 if you just left everything in a regular big bank account, which is just, for me at least, a big no. Now, I know that somebody may be thinking, man, Alex, that sounds like a lot of work, man. That's like too much. Like, I just want to leave everything in my regular checking account. And it can cost you a lot of money, right? So if we had 50 grand, that can be $1,500 lost just because you didn't spend an hour setting up your financial system. And the truth is that convenience, in many cases, can cost you hundreds or even thousands of dollars every single year. So, what can you do right now, right? So, at the very least, if you don't have one already, definitely open a high yield savings account. It only takes like 5 to 10 minutes, and that can help you start getting earning interest right away. Then you can move on to T-bills and start exploring how it works. And then you can move on to comparing CD rates, and then just set reminders on when everything is going to be maturing. At the end of the day, you are much better equipped now. You are more aware. And now, of course, it's going to be up to you to make it happen. So if you're ready to sign up with high yield savings accounts or CDs, make sure that you check the links in the description. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care. Peace.